All right, let's talk about childhood obesity. But I want you to know, right from the start, this is not just about weight. We're diving into a hidden health crisis, one with consequences that can start way, way earlier than most people think, silently setting the stage for someone's entire future health. Think about it. When I say heart disease, who do you picture? Probably someone older, right? Maybe in their 50s, 60s, or beyond. We've always been told it's a problem that shows up after a lifetime of decisions. But what if that's not really the whole story? What if the seeds of a heart attack in a 50-year-old are actually planted when they're just a kid, like 10 years old? And look, that's not just some wild theory. It's what the science is telling us, loud and clear. And honestly, that idea, it changes everything. Okay, so to really get why this is so critical, we have to zoom out and look at the sheer scale of the problem. Because this isn't just happening in one or two places. We're talking about a full-blown global epidemic, and it's picking up speed. I mean, look at the numbers. Over the last 2 or 3 decades, childhood obesity rates have just exploded. Exploded! And here's the really sobering part. Even with all the attention it's gotten, not a single region on the planet has actually managed to turn the tide and reverse the trend. And if that wasn't bad enough, just when it seemed like maybe some places were starting to get a handle on it, bam, the pandemic hits. And all that disruption, it caused a massive spike in weight gain, especially for kids. It was like pouring gasoline on a fire that was already raging. So let's get to the real heart of the matter. Because I'm going to say it again. This is so much more than just about weight. It's about the hidden damage happening deep inside the body, specifically inside the cardiovascular system. Yeah, there's this term you need to know, early vascular aging. It sounds complicated, but it's actually exactly what it says on the tin. It's when a kid's blood vessels, their arteries, start getting old and stiff and damaged way, way too early. We're talking about the circulatory system of a child starting to look like that of a middle-aged adult. And just to be clear, this isn't some fringe idea. The scientific community is pretty much in agreement on this now. That process that clogs our arteries, the one that leads to heart attacks and strokes, it doesn't just magically appear when you turn 40. Nope, it's a slow burn disease that gets its start all the way back in childhood. So how does this happen? Well, it's a process called atherosclerosis, and it basically has 4 stages. It starts with the lining of your blood vessels getting damaged. Then fats and other gunk start to build up. That buildup turns into plaque. And finally, that plaque can break open or rupture, which is what causes a heart attack. Now, what obesity does in a child is it's like hitting the fast-forward button on this entire dangerous process. Okay, so the big question is why? Why is this happening to so many kids? It's really tempting to just boil it down to simple choices, but the reality is so much more complex. We've got to zoom out and look at the entire web of causes. So, is the answer really as simple as telling kids to eat less and move more? Well, the research is crystal clear on this. Absolutely not. That's a huge oversimplification, and honestly, it completely misses what's really driving this crisis. In fact, when you dig into the data, some of the biggest drivers aren't about individual willpower at all. They're about the environment. Things like adverse childhood experiences, you might see them called ACEs, and household food insecurity, which just means a family doesn't have reliable access to enough food. Both of these are powerfully linked to poor heart health down the road. And you can really see how it all fits together with this model. It shows it's all connected. A child's choices are shaped by their family, the family is shaped by the community, things like, are there safe parks to play in? Is there good health care? And all of that is influenced by even bigger society-wide issues. You've got chronic stress, mental health, even genetics. They're all tangled up in this incredibly complicated web. Okay, so the problem is clearly complex, but here's the good news. Our approach to treating it is finally starting to catch up. We're really entering a whole new era, and we have a much more modern, multi-level toolkit to work with. For decades, the old way of thinking was all about focusing on individual lifestyle stuff, just diet and exercise. But we know now that just doesn't work for most people on its own. The modern approach? It's way more comprehensive. It's a whole strategy that brings together lifestyle, diet, yes, but also powerful new medicines and even surgery when it's needed. And a huge piece of this new understanding is coming from a surprising place, our gut. Scientists have zeroed in on this one compound called TMAO. Basically, our gut microbes make it when we eat things like red meat. And here's the kicker. High levels of TMAO are directly tied to that whole artery clogging process we just walked through. But then, on the flip side, you have the good guys, short-chain fatty acids, or SCFAs for short. Our gut bacteria make these when they munch on fiber from plants. And SCFAs are linked to all sorts of good things, like helping to control appetite and calming down inflammation. It's this really clear biological link that shows exactly how the quality of our diet directly impacts our risk for heart disease. And it's not just about diet. The last few years have been a complete revolution when it comes to medications. I mean, for almost 20 years, there were basically no new options approved for kids. Now, we have several, including these incredibly powerful new drugs like semaglutide that are just, well, they're delivering incredible results. Just how effective are we talking? Well, get this. A recent clinical trial showed that teens with obesity who took semaglutide saw their BMI drop by an average of over 16%. 16%. That is an absolutely game-changing number. It offers so much real, tangible hope for so many families. Now, for the most severe cases, the single most effective tool we have for long-term results is bariatric surgery. And the research on this is solid. Big studies show it leads to sustained long-term weight loss, and it massively improves those risk factors for heart disease. And it does all this with a really strong safety record. So when you put all of this together, where does it leave us? Well, it points to a very clear path forward, a holistic one that finally recognizes the true, full scope of this problem. At the end of the day, if we're serious about making a difference here, we have to move beyond the blame game. We have to stop pointing fingers at individuals. The real solution has to support the child and the family and the entire community, all at the same time. This is a systemic problem, plain and simple, and that means it needs a systemic solution. And that really leaves us with one last big question to think about. Because this isn't just a medical problem, is it? It's a societal one. So the question for all of us is, how do we build communities? How do we create systems where every single child has a real, fair shot at living a long and healthy life?